Buenos dias, good morning. I hope you are well, staying positive and focused on what you can control. My name is Patricia Mota. I am currently serving as President and CEO for the Hispanic Alliance for Career Enhancement, a national nonprofit whose mission is to positively impact workplaces by cultivating the pipeline of Latinx talent. Welcome to our 2022 series of Cafecito con HACE. You'll notice a new look, new guests, new co-hosts throughout the year, and we look forward to engaging with you. Make sure you are networking in the comments section, that you're making some connections, that you're asking questions, and that you're engaging throughout our conversations. And most importantly, buenos dias a todos. Buenos dias, Flor. I hope you have your cafecito ready to go. We are getting ready to celebrate HACE's 40th anniversary. This is about HACE Más. HACE Más for your career, HACE Más for Latino talent, and HACE Más to lead. Check out the theme throughout the year. Check out how HACE can continue to support you in your career, support with ensuring that we are advancing Latino talent, and that most importantly, you are unleashing the inner leader in you throughout the year. Our summit registration's open, so check out the link and join us on April 21st and 22nd, a series of workshops, networking opportunities, and also, most importantly, a celebration to recognize HACE's 40th anniversary. And I am most proud that we are going to award 40 students from across the nation with scholarships, $2,500 scholarships. So the application is now open. You know, that college student or that individual that's looking for that support to get through their college education, please share the link and encourage them to apply. I think that's it for all of the announcements. Please stay tuned. Go to the website for more information. I am proud to have our special guest joining us today because it is so critical with our theme and all the work that HACE is doing. And she is Ruby Garcia. Buenos dias, Ruby. She is a leadership and life coach and also an alumna from our Mujeres de HACE program, one of our facilitators and program leads for our programs as well. Ruby, buenos dias.
Good morning. I'm so glad to be here with you this morning.
Good morning. As you see, we've got lots going on. I know you have lots going on, so we look forward to diving in this conversation with you, getting to know who Ruby is. And again, those of you tuning in, get your questions, your comments ready. Ya saben, you all already know. Ruby, how do you prefer your cafecito or your morning beverage of choice?
So this morning, I actually am giving up coffee. So I've been on a coffee fast, but I'm using alternatives. I'm drinking a mushroom coffee latte.
Mushroom coffee latte.
Yeah, it's a superfood.
Tell me more. Never heard.
It's a superfood, and it does have some caffeine, so I still get a little bit of caffeine kick. But working from home, I found myself drinking like an entire pot of coffee all throughout the day, and I knew that that was not a good habit. So I decided to kind of swap it out, and I just drink this one coffee mushroom latte. Gives me a little bit of a booster in the morning, and then I'm kind of now drinking tea instead of the coffee.
That's awesome. Does it taste like mushroom?
No, it still has a little bit of a coffee taste that I like. And I use like almond milk with it, and so I still get that like richness that I like from the cream. So yeah, it's not your normal beverage, I guess, but it tastes good.
Well, I have to say, you're the first that shared that, and now I'm sure a lot of our guests have learned something new, as myself, about that mushroom coffee. Ruby, tell us about your cultural, your professional background, how you got to what you're doing and your role today.
Yeah, so I am. So I grew up outside of Chicago in the western suburbs of Chicago and St. Charles, and I kind of grew up a little bit of one foot in both worlds. So my stepdad is American, my mom is Mexican. So I always kind of felt like I wasn't Mexican enough, nor was I American enough. And so that was kind of a theme, but it's been really something that I actually think has really, as I've gotten older, I've realized that that's actually supported me in a lot of ways. I'm a first generation college graduate. I went to Dominican University for my undergrad in organizational leadership. And then I did my master's in National Louis in public policy. I didn't have a traditional career path. I was an older student. I was very fortunate, and I started working for GE Capital when I was 19 years old. And that was kind of my first professional role. And then I moved into another Fortune 500 organization, and then later another one where I spent 10 years, basically all in sales leadership for Fortune 500 organizations. And during that last role, I was working with Granger at the time, who I know has been a partner of HACE's as well. That's actually, it was through Granger that I was nominated to participate in the Mujeres de HACE program. Someone else had actually nominated me for that program, and it was really transformative. It was the first leadership program that I went through. I think it was 2012 or 2013. Can't exactly remember.
Time flies. I remember.
It was a long time ago. And it was really transformative. And it felt, I felt like I found found a home, because I had kind of, struggled with, I think, what is typical, your imposter syndrome. I worked in an organization that was really male, white dominated, didn't really know where I fit in. And I was about 30. So I was a little older going through the Mujeres program. I think when I went through that, maybe a little older, 32 or something like that. And, it gave me a lot of language and tools that I had never had before. And it also gave me this community. And, once I got into that program, I was hooked with HACE. A lot of my friends I've met through HACE. I served on the alumni board, and, now, working in different capacities as a facilitator and coach and program lead. So, So that's a little bit, I have a long history with HACE, so I'm excited to be sharing that.
And your story is just a perfect example of how folks can transition throughout their career, right? You have such a diversity in terms of roles that you've had. And we know, and I know you know because you're a coach, that there's many folks out there that are either transitioning or thinking about transitioning. And so we want you to know that it can be done, right? And that you have resources like HACE, coaches like Ruby that are here to support you through that process. And as Ruby mentioned, she's a lifelong HACE part of the HACE familia, and even through her evolution has been involved. And so it's an exciting week, right? We've launched the registration for our leadership summit. We've launched the scholarship applications, but we also, to your point, Ruby, launched the Mujeres de HACE program application. So those of you, check out the website, make sure that you're getting more information on there and how to get involved. But we also want to hear from you in the comments if you have any questions, if you have anything you want to learn from Ruby during this time that we have with her. Ruby, tell us, as a career coach, as an amazing leader, HACE leader, what would you encourage those that are listening in to do as they think about how they can, for their careers, but get involved with HACE through that process?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was so critical for me. So I think part of what I would encourage is one is to engage in the programs, right? And then two is that's just the beginning of the journey, right? That the engagement doesn't stop when the program ends, but to get involved in other ways, whether that's serving on a board, whether that is, networking, whether it's coming back as a speaker or facilitator. I think, getting involved in the summit, showing up. So I think there are so many different ways, but I think the main point is that's where the journey starts. And then just continuing to, network and participate in the events and different workshops and programs that, if you've gone through Mujeres, maybe it's the, Leadership Academy or the Entrepreneur Program that started up this year. So there's lots of different ways to get engaged, but I think it's really making it intentional and creating the space for that development.
I love that you said the word intentional because that's something that's intertwined in our theme for the year is how are we being intentional in terms of the career goals that we're setting and the resources and how we engage with resources organizations throughout the year to help us meet those goals, right?
Mhm.
How are we being intentional about, conversations and what we're involved with? And so I think it's critical, and I encourage everyone, tuning in to think about that for you. And Ruby, since that's something I would say you've done throughout your career, and especially as a coach, what's one key thing that you would say from, let's say, your experience with HACE that has been like your top number one way why you're still continue to get engaged and involved with the organization?
Okay, so ask that question one more time. So what's the number one
Yeah,
way
why
to
do
get?
you stay involved? Why are you still here
Oh, I
after
mean,
so many
because it's
years?
yeah.
But I want you to narrow it down. We're gonna get like to one top if you had to pick.
Um. Oh gosh, that's so hard, right? There's so
Sorry.
many reasons, but I think the number one, I'm going to use like two words, is like value and impact, right?
Mm,
Like there's a lot of value in the programs in the network, and it makes impact for you personally, and then it gives you an opportunity to impact other people's lives. That's why, like, it's just comes down to value and impact.
yeah. And one of and I have so many just fond memories of working with you throughout the years. But you mentioned, being involved in the at the time it was an advisory board. It's now our auxiliary boards, alumni boards, and just the relationships, right?
Mhm.
That I remember that then that are still, have today, there's still remain true today, and how powerful that is, where there's a meaningful network of, in this case with Mujeres de Hace, of women who are really empowering one another and there to support one another in an intentional manner. Hi, Elia. So good to see you on
Hey,
here. Good to love one of our Mujeres de Hace. I love your photo on there. That's awesome. Can you share, Ruby, what has been key for you in your career? What are some of the goals and intentions for this year that you have set, and how can ASE, for example, continue to support you? And for those of you tuning in, we want you to think about that. What does that mean for you?
yeah. I think for me, so I've gone through multiple career transitions. Like I said, I went from working in corporate for 15 years, becoming a coach. I did foster care reform and fellowship. So I've gone through a couple of career transitions. And I think the biggest thing that I would say is just to develop your growth mindset, to put yourself in situations. And this is what I did, is put myself in situations that were outside of my comfort zone. That is the way that you grow. That is the way that you develop your skills. That is the way that you expand your network. There's so much value in doing new things. So, whether it's changing companies, whether it is, going to networking events, whether it's, starting a side gig. But I think like um, the biggest lesson I've learned is to just show up. That's really it. Just like keep showing up, keep putting yourselves in situations that are new and outside of your comfort zone, because that's where the growth happens.
Absolutely. So keep showing up, being intentional. That's where the growth happens. We want to hear from you all. How do you plan to show up? How do you plan to be intentional? Please share in the comments and make sure that this is a networking opportunity. You have folks that are here from all across the nation that are engaging, that could perhaps be your next mentor, your next coach, or someone that you just be able to establish a great relationship with. Megan, I love what you're saying here. It says, someone said, when you really start to find your passion and put your effort into what fills your cup, opportunities show. Ruby, when did you find your passion and how have you fed that hunger? Hashtag intentional.
Yeah, hashtag intentional. Yeah. So I really found my passion. You know what? I found myself mentoring other and kind of, coaching while I was in corporate. And that's why I decided, I thought, well, can I do this as a little bit of a side gig? And so then I, went through a 1-year coach training program. And I was actually renewing my own contract with my coach and kind of recreating goals for a year. And I said, I want to create a 1-year exit strategy to become a full-time coach. And the very next day I got laid off. So I guess I'm a great manifester. But I think it's just about like, it's I would say it's not even about finding your passion, that those passions are already there. And then actually it's just action around those. So it's just showing up, it's sharing your gifts with people. And like Megan said, like those opportunities show up. The more that I show up, the more that people are reaching out to me to, collaborate, to participate. So it's just putting yourself out there and just following the breadcrumbs. Look for the clues and follow those breadcrumbs, and they'll lead you to exactly where you need to be.
Absolutely. Thank you for the questions. Keep them coming. We have a few more minutes left with Ruby. We want to hear from you. We know that January has came and gone so quickly, but we still have another 11 months for this year for you to start. If you haven't put that plan together, if you're kind of fell off the tracks, let's get it going and ensuring that you have a coach. I think what's one thing that I think we were talking about earlier, Ruby, is that we're starting to see more and more people are reaching out to coaches, wanting to have a coach. And I think it's super critical that that's part of your circle that you do have in your career. I myself have had coaches along the way that have helped me along my career trajectory, and I'm a firm believer of that. And so we want to encourage you to think about getting a coach. And so Maria is asking, what is the biggest lesson you learned in your career change? That's a great question.
I think the biggest lesson that I've learned is that you need to have confidence from within. Like that self-efficacy is really such an important piece. Like now that I've learned that like I'm so grounded inside that you can put me in a new situation and I might not know everything about it, but I know that I'm capable of figuring it out. So I think the biggest lesson I've learned is to do the internal work first, and then that will dictate everything else. So that inner transformation is really, really critical. And it's easy to ignore because it's easier to go to the strategy and like, how do we need to do things? But the inner work is going to set you up for success.
The inner work is going to set you up for success. I love that, Ruby. I think that's the core and that's at the foundation for all of us in building the resiliency muscle, right? It's like the stronger you are at your foundation in terms of really knowing who you are and being self-aware, the easier it becomes for us to handle change, to go through change, right? And so your story, your example is the epitome of that. And so thank you for sharing how critical that is, right?
Yeah, because and I think part of it too is what you make me think of is like when you are going outside of your comfort zone, you're going to fail. You're going to fail. It's just natural, right? And the thing is when you're grounded inside, you don't make the failure mean something about you. You take it and you just say, okay, what can I learn from this, and how do I move forward? How will I do things differently? And so it's a whole mindset, right, that goes along with it.
You don't make the failure. Can you repeat that one?
The failure doesn't end up defined. It's not like that I'm a failure, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the thing didn't happen, but it doesn't define who you are. Failure is not your identity. And that's what I see too. People will take on the identity as failure, but your relationship to failure changes. And really, when you have a strong relationship with yourself, your relationship to everything else changes. Your relationship to other people, your relationship to money, your relationship to health, your relationship to your work. So that's why that inner, developing the inner foundation is so fundamental for everything else.
So many nuggets. Failure does not identify you or define you, right? I think that's so critical. Dolores has a question. I started a new career after 15 years at one company. Best piece of advice of someone wanting to make their mark when starting all over?
Oh man, I've started over so many times. I love this question.
Perfect person to ask. Great.
Yeah, I love this question. It's best piece of advice. Okay, let me think about this. It's going to go back to getting really clear and being intentional about what you want. That like who you are and really knowing your identity, and then taking inspired action. And then for strategy, I'll throw a little strategy in there. It's all about personal branding. so that you build a strong personal brand and that you're defining the brand and not letting someone else define it for you.
You make sure people know who you are, what you bring to the table, and offer value, right? To stand out in your first new role. Joseph, thank you for the kind comments. All of you in the comments, thank you for engaging with us. We had too short of a time with Ruby, but guess what? Ruby's accessible to you. Reach out to her on her LinkedIn. Absolutely. How else can people reach out to you, Ruby?
Yeah, the best way is through LinkedIn. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram, but really LinkedIn is kind of my primary place where I hang out. And of course, we have the coaching program through HACE, so you can also find me through HACE that way.
Absolutely. So Ruby's one of our coaches, our program leads for Mujeres de HACE. That application is now open as well. Ruby, take us home. What are you most hopeful for, or positive story that gives you hope for this year?
I think the thing that I'm most excited about is that I'm hearing more of our community speaking up and telling their stories. And I see a lot more collaboration going on. And I feel like we're coming into this full ownership where in the past, maybe there's been, negative or disempowering stories that we've let us hold back. But I feel like we are actually shifting into this, being a powerful voice, and that we're really going from the kind of the survival mentality to this thriving mentality. So that's what's most exciting to me about this year.
Ruby and all of y'all tuning in, I hope you all are as inspired as I am. I'm super appreciative of your time this morning. Please reach out, continue to engage. All of you, Wednesday mornings, Cafecitos, 10 a.m. Central Time. We'll see you until next time. Hasta la próxima. Take care.
Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.